So hello once again, my friends. Back here with another video. Seems like I'm doing them every day, right? Um, let's see here. So today this video hopefully should be relatively short. And for those of you who have not watched the other videos because you've looked in, or at least the first video that I did in this quote-unquote series, and you've looked in and you said, oh, 50 minutes, I'm not listening to that crap. I'm not spending my time wasting all that time. I'm going to try to see if I can, not summarize, but I think I titled the video, Hard Questions for Hebrew Israelites. So what I'm going to do in this video is to try to see if I can just go right to the questions. Okay? So, again, some people are going to wonder, like, why am I doing these videos? There's really no rhyme or reason. It's just that the thoughts come into my head. I think about them. Don't think I'm just picking on Hebrew Israelites, because there are people who can look into this who are Christians and will probably also have issues with what I'm saying. Okay? I just happen to be very familiar with the Christian faith, being a Christian before. And as a result, I'm also familiar with those different sects and groups that are close to Christianity or broke off from Christianity, or more or less just offshoots of some Christian idea or whatever. For example, Christians use the Bible. Hebrew Israelites also use the Bible. Rastafarians also use the Bible. So there's going to be some intersectionality here and there between all the groups, even if after you go below the hood, they start believing a bunch of different things or contradictory things or things that, each other don't believe. So that's one of the reasons why I do this. The other reason, perhaps I'm just bored, and I just decided to just go ahead and do this. Obviously, this is YouTube also. So you like to have a nice little following on YouTube. So hopefully the whole congregation of Hebrew Israelites would be out here coming in to watch these videos. You can come in to critique, you can come in to agree, you can come in to disagree, whatever you may want to do. One thing I must admit, though, when I look at the videos, I do see a few thumbs up. I haven't seen any thumbs down, which is kind of interesting. I would think the Hebrew Israelites, realizing that I'm discussing their belief system, would be the ones coming in and just dropping a whole bunch of thumbs down, like, whatever. One guy came in, or one commentator came into the last video and said somebody must be paying this fool, referring to me. I really had to laugh when I heard that. Somebody must be paying this fool. He doesn't explain or point out why I am a fool. He doesn't go ahead and go into any of the videos and have anything in there to say, well, these are my points, this is what I disagree with, here is my proof, or whatever. Nothing like that. Just somebody must be paying me. So I told him, I said, listen, if someone was, you would be the first one to be paying me. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know right now, no money, no monetizing or anything from YouTube either. And no one is paying me to do this. This is just me just talking, me just sharing my thoughts, me just sharing my ideas. And if it sounds critical of your faith or your belief or whatever, and you're offended by that, well, you know how that goes. There's got to be some sort of if what I'm saying is rattling you or rattling your faith, well, something else is going on. If it's causing you to think things over, great. If it's causing you to stand more firm in it, great. It's really up to you. This is just some guy on YouTube just talking. But anyway, in that first video that I did, one of the questions I did ask was, whenever I speak to Hebrew Israelites, or I've come across them, or not even Hebrew Israelites, but people who have that Hebrew Israelite thinking, like, for example, I mentioned my cousin yesterday. He's not necessarily a Hebrew Israelite. He considered himself a Rastafarian. But, as I said before, these various groups, their beliefs that somewhat intersect here and there in passing, they believe the same thing before they branch off into something else entirely different. So he was one of them. And one of the reasons I've been doing these videos again is because I mentioned in the last video, he keeps hammering my inbox with just pro-African things all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. And in some of the things that he goes and mentions, let me see if I can get this light back on. Just give me 1 second. Okay. And in half of the things that he puts down, or he puts into my my inbox, every now and again he comes up with something. Hey, the 12 tribes of Israel, and Israel this, and Africans or Israelites, and whatever. So he always keeps it kind of in the forefront of my mind. Now, someday I'm going to probably show him these videos so he can watch them for himself, or he's probably seen them already. Who knows? Or it's probably spreading around to him already. Who knows? But when he brings this information to me, I have asked him, and I've asked it on here also, why in the world do the Hebrew Israelites identify with the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28? It's like if you say, why are you a Hebrew Israelite? It's like the card that they hand you is, look, Deuteronomy chapter 28. That's us. That's us right there. That's us black people. Look at what we've gone through. It's describing us to a T, as some have said. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why in the world would a people sit back and say, you see those curses that are predicted in the Bible? They're talking about us, and using it almost as a badge of honor. See, we're cursed. That means we're the people of God. We're cursed. That means we're the people of God. Just put it that way. Just think about it that way. Hebrew Israelites, as far as I know, are not going through much more of the Bible per se. I guess some groups do. But it's like that's their hallmark. That's the calling card right there. Deuteronomy chapter 28 proves that we are the people of God because we are cursed. Because our history has been cursed. So it must mean it's got to be describing us black people. You know, when you really think about it, or at least when I think about it, it sounds like a defeatist attitude. It's like, woe is us. Look at us. We've taken a beating. We've taken a real serious beating. And because we have, we are the ones. We are the ones who are God's chosen people, because we've been punished, and we're still being punished to this very day. So we're God's people. I don't know. It sounds rather strange to me. So if a Hebrew Israelite can come in and explain to me how that logic makes any sense whatsoever, or why you would want to be associated with that, like all this negativity in the Bible, mentioned in the Bible about the Israelites in the Old Testament, why would I want to take that and throw it on myself and say, now I feel as though I am a Hebrew Israelite because I am cursed? Or we are cursed, so we must be the Hebrew Israelites. If you can come up with a solid, sensible answer, I would like to hear it, okay? The next question I would like to ask is, if the biblical God is the God of the Hebrew Israelites, which they will say he is, so when they read about God in the Bible, Hebrew Israelites are saying, that is our God, that is our deity, okay? Now, I suspect that they also believe that that God is the one and only true God, and that God is also the creator of the heavens and the earth according to the Bible, which they claim that they read. Now, here's the other crazy thing. So this is a God who, if we had to go by what people say in terms of, when the content was written, or if you want to go as far back as to where Moses was allegedly lived, you're talking about a man who would have lived about 3,000 years ago, somewhere around there, 2,800. So just round it off to 3,000 years ago. He utters, according to the biblical writers, Moses utters and predicts or prophesy, and basically says, these are the curses that will befall you if you don't follow the precepts of the biblical God. Well, it didn't take long for them to start not doing the right thing according to the Bible, what the Bible says that God wanted them to do. They made a covenant with their God at Mount Sinai, or Mount Gerizim, one of the two, or Ebal. They made a covenant with their God, and right off the bat, they started breaking the covenant, right? So punishment began to befall them. Or I should say judgment began to befall them. They would go back and forth. They would waffle back and forth, back and forth. One minute they're serving God, the God of the Bible, Yahweh. The next minute they're following idols and so on. Supposedly these curses came after that because they were not doing what they were supposed to do. So this was 3,000 years ago starting. Do you mean to tell me that 3,000 years later, or just up to 500 years ago, up to the current, that this God is still so petty, still so angry, still so pissed off, that he's still allowing these curses to affect us? And if we're his people, and he has done this to us, what about all the other people, the Europeans and everything, that have been living great for centuries now, who are not his people? Why are they blessed? So he is that petty that he's taking out his frustration and anger on his people in the form of curses. But these people over here who went ahead and enslaved us, went around the world dominating, massacring people, grabbing land, doing all the wicked things that they have done. They're like just living great. So like, he's so occupied in punishing us, even allowing those people, if you're going to go with the biblical narrative, mind you, or the Hebrew theology mindset, even allowing those people, quote unquote, the enemy, to oppress us and let the enemies use us for their benefit to generate wealth and generate generational wealth. And he's allowing that to happen because he has a bone to pick with us. Now here's another thing. I guess this is another question on top of that question. According to the Hebrew Israelites, and using Deuteronomy chapter 28 as their basis, it says that the people did not do what they were supposed to do and keep the covenants of God. Does any Hebrew Israelite know what was going on in the Hebrew Israelite communities in Africa prior to their capturing and enslavement to bring them on this side of the world? Again, this is Hebrew Israelite belief and thinking and teachings, okay? Reality, another story. Of course, there are things that they're saying that, does fall into reality. So the Bible is talking about all the things that the Israelites didn't do, which led to the curses befalling them. So we can read in the Bible, if you're going to follow the biblical account, and find out what the Israelites were doing 2,000 years ago. I'm sorry, 2,500 years ago, 2,700 years ago. You can read the details of what they didn't do according to the biblical writers. They were following false gods. They were worshiping false gods. They were not following the commandments of God. You can read that. You can see it there. But beyond that, the Bible only goes up but to so far. Its history only goes up but to so far. Since then, if these Hebrew Israelites ended up in Africa, on the African continent, do we have documentation of what they were doing that caused the curses to still follow them? Like, do we know that they were over there worshiping false gods? We know that. And if they were worshiping false gods and living like everybody else, how could you distinguish the Shemites, as Hebrew Israelites would like to point out? How were you able to distinguish them from the heathen Hamites, the other Africans. So you would have to say that they were over there in Africa doing all the wrong things, doing things they should not be doing, worshiping false idols. But how would you know that that person over there worshiping some whatever out in the bushes, how would you know and say, oh, I could tell he's a Shemite? How were you able to distinguish? What were they doing in Africa prior to coming over here for thousands of years? Or for what? The Babylonian exile was 2,500 years ago, 2,600 years ago or so. And that's when I guess they scattered into parts of Africa. When Nebuchadnezzar, I'm sorry about that, invaded Judah and carried off the exiles, and some escaped into Egypt. And then there was the destruction of the temple by Titus in AD 70 or 70 CE. And again, some of them escaped or were taken over into Africa. You can say those are the points when the Hebrew Israelites left the land of Israel and ended up in parts of Africa. So from that time up to the transatlantic slave trade, the start of the transatlantic slave trade, do Hebrew Israelites have information on what these people were doing, what these Shemites, what these Hebrew Israelites were doing on the continent of Africa that was going against the scriptures, that led to their eventual enslavement? Now, if you really think about it, and you're saying, well, the reason why we ended up in the transatlantic slave trade is because we're not following the commandments of God. Now, I don't know how we would know that, but just say you happen to know this. You know what that sounds very close to? When I was a Christian, something I would never utter, but when you're confronted with it, and you still believe in God and believe in the Bible, you have to come up with a very awkward answer. Fortunately, I never had to say it, but I have heard other black Christians say this. Hey, why did a loving God allow us to be enslaved? Why did he allow us to end up in a position like this? A loving God. Why did he allow other people for all those hundreds of years to enslave us, to oppress us, to do all these type of things to us? And you know what I've heard? So just listen to this and see how close it sounds to Hebrew Israelite belief. Well, this one guy said it about a year ago on Facebook, and he's a Christian. God allowed us, our black folks, our African ancestors, God allowed us to go into slavery to bring us to the knowledge of Jesus Christ. He allowed us to go into slavery. He allowed our ancestors to go into slavery because they were over there worshiping animals. They were worshiping ancestors. They didn't believe in the true God of the Bible. So God allowed slavery to happen, allowed them to be enslaved and to be brought to this side of the world in chains so that they would learn about Jesus Christ. Let that digest. Think about that. Just think about it. Hebrew Israelites, we are over here and we were enslaved and brought over here because we did not keep the commandments of God. What's the difference? Listen to how it sounds. You feel good as a black person saying that? That God is orchestrating everything and he allowed those people over there who don't even believe in God, or who are not following God the right way, or who are not Christians the right way, and he allowed them to come and enslave our people, bring us on this side of the world. So in Hebrew Israelite theology or belief, it would be to teach us a lesson. And for those Christians, those black Christians who believe that, to bring us to the knowledge of Jesus Christ. As though that couldn't have happened with us being on the continent. Look what happened in Ethiopia and Egypt with the Coptic church there and the Egyptian church over on that side over there. Christianity came down there. They accepted Christianity. So he couldn't do the same thing in West Africa. So we had to go through enslavement for us to know who Jesus was. Finally, the last thing I was going to ask is this. You pick up a Bible and you look at the Old Testament and you see where the biblical God did some, if you believe in God, you believe that's a reality up there. Of course, I don't. But let's just work with it that you believe that there is a deity up there who's controlling everything. How do you feel being associated with such a bloody deity? A deity that says, listen, go in. Now, of course, this is, according to the biblical narrative. And him supposedly speaking through his prophets, like Moses, like Elijah, and says, go into this land and kill off all the people you see there and take the land for yourselves because I promised it to your father Abraham. How do you feel about that? Where in modern times you can criticize the United States, you can criticize England, you can criticize France for doing the very same thing. Going into other people's lands, claiming that they're spreading enlightenment or the truth or bringing the knowledge of Jesus Christ to these people in the tip of a sword and wiping out people and then claiming the land for themselves. That's exactly what the Israelites did in the Bible, according to the Bible, mind you. Again, I always say reality might be a different thing, but this is what they did. How do you feel being associated with that deity? That's the God you serve. That's the God you claim to believe in. How do you feel being... So if you're a Hebrew Israelite and you're saying you're descendants of those people, by association, in terms of lineage, those are your people back then, massacring people in the name of God. What do you think about that today? Anyway, those are my questions. So you can hopefully listen to this video and let me hear what your answers are going to be. Let me hear what you have to say. I would love to hear it. Hey, we're talking mano a mano, mano a womano. Just having a discussion. Don't get mad. Don't get upset. Don't come in here talking about who's a fool and who's paying this fool. And please spare me the whole you don't understand, you're not enlightened, you don't know the word and the various things. Again, those are things I used to say. So you're not bothering me. You're not chasing me away like, oh my God, they just said I don't understand the Bible. I used to tell people that nonsense all the time. Whenever they came with good points, good arguments, or even just an argument. Get away from me, peasant. You don't understand the Bible like I do. You don't have the knowledge and the enlightenment that I do. I am imbued with the enlightenment from the Almighty, and you don't know. That arrogant kind of talk. Anyway, I kept this under a half an hour, under 25 minutes. So you guys take care. I would like to hear from you, okay? So again, hit the comment section. Let me know. One guy did a response video. I haven't seen him or her since. I responded back to the video. I haven't really heard anything from them. Somebody said they wanted to bait me. I haven't heard from them either. So let me know what you think, okay? Thank you. Talk to you the next time. Until next video, which might happen tomorrow. So you guys take care. Bye.